What if your greatest pain was never punishment and but preparation? What if the family that nearly broke you was the furnace meant to reveal your strength? And what if everything you've survived was the beginning of something sacred? There is a particular kind of pain that begins too early to name, a pain that shows up in rooms filled with silence instead of safety. In birthdays forgotten, in hugs that never came, in the way your voice began to shrink because no one was really listening. This is the pain of being born into a family that couldn't hold you because they were still bleeding from wounds they never faced, and instead of warmth, you felt weight. Instead of tenderness, you learned tension. Instead of being celebrated for who you were, you learned to become whatever wouldn't cause more damage. And maybe no one ever told you this, but what you lived through wasn't normal. It was a storm, a system built on silence, control, fear, and unmet needs. But you survived it. And now, you're starting to feel something shift, a quiet, aching truth beginning to stir beneath the weight of it all. What if your story didn't begin with tragedy, but with training? Not the kind you wanted, not the kind that felt like love, but the kind that forged you in places most people will never go, because it had to. You see, healing isn't a luxury, it's a revolution, and those who carry the deepest wounds often become the ones who carry the deepest wisdom. We don't speak enough about the children who were never allowed to be children, who learned how to read faces like maps, who knew how to shrink themselves, to survive a dinner table, who learned to hold their breath around the people they loved. This wasn't weakness, this was survival. But there comes a moment, quiet and unannounced, when survival no longer feels like enough, when something deeper, older, stronger rises in you and says, enough. Enough smiling through rage, enough apologizing for your needs, enough playing small so others don't feel confronted by your truth. And in that moment, you don't just begin to heal, you begin to become. You become the one in your lineage who breaks the cycle. The one who turns pain into purpose, who steps into the same fire that once consumed them, but this time carries it forward as light, because only in darkness do you learn how to light your own fire. Only in the absence of love do you learn how to give it back to yourself, fiercely, gently, completely. Only in the echo of generational silence do you, when the voice that says, this pain does not get to define me. You are not here to stay broken. You are here to remember that your worth was never determined by the ones who couldn't see it. To remember that your voice was never too much. It was just too honest for those who weren't ready. This is not a story of blame. This is a story of becoming, of reclaiming the parts of you that were buried under performance, of transforming scars into sacred wisdom, of loving yourself in the ways no one ever taught you. You are not here to repeat. You are here to end what must end, heal what was never healed, and build what has never existed before. And you're already doing it, with every boundary you draw, with every moment you pause before reacting, with every word you finally speak that once lived only in silence. You are the plot twist in your family's story, the one who decided that survival was no longer enough, the one who rewrote a legacy, not with anger, but with awareness. And yes, it's hard, but you weren't meant for easy. You were meant for truth, for depth, for quiet power. So no, your pain was not punishment. Your family was not your failure, and your sensitivity was not your weakness. It was your compass, your signal, your awakening, because you are not just a survivor of your story. You are the author of what comes next. And this is where it begins. Let's begin. Number 1. Only by living in darkness do you learn how to light your own fire. There is a kind of wisdom that can only be earned in silence, a kind of strength that can only be forged in shadow, and a kind of light, pure, unwavering, that can only be born when all other sources have gone out, because only in darkness do you learn how to light your own fire. For some of us, that darkness began at birth, not a physical absence of light, but something harder to name, a coldness in the room where warmth should have lived, a lack of safety where love should have stood. And for those of us who came from families that felt more like battlegrounds than belonging, we learned early what the world often avoids, that not all love is love, and not all homes are safe. And still, we survived. But more than that, we adapted. We became sensitive to tone. We read moods before words. We learned to stay silent when we wanted to scream. We learned to shrink ourselves so we wouldn't be too much for the people who were never enough. And for a while, that silence felt like defeat, like something was wrong with us. But it wasn't. It never was. Because while they were sleeping in comfort, you were waking in darkness, not just surviving it, but studying it, learning where every shadow lived, learning how pain moves, how control disguises itself as love, how gaslighting sounds when it's spoken in a parent's voice. That wasn't failure. That was training, because one day your soul would ask something more of you, not just to endure, but to rise, not just to carry the weight, but to understand it, to trace it back, name it, and finally, put it down. And when that day comes, it doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't arrive with permission. It starts in a whisper, a quiet voice deep in your bones that says, enough. Enough pretending you weren't hurt. Enough smiling through someone else's rage. Enough making yourself small so that others don't feel confronted by your truth. And in that moment, when you decide to stop performing, when you choose to stop surviving your family and start healing from it, something beautiful happens. You become dangerous, not in the way they once accused you of being, not with rebellion or rage, but with clarity, with awareness, with boundaries. You become the one in the bloodline who breaks the cycle, because here's what they don't teach you when you're growing up in a home soaked in dysfunction: that your suffering wasn't senseless. It was sharpening you, preparing you for a level of presence, self-awareness, and compassion that people raised in safety may never be forced to learn. You don't grow wings in comfort. You grow them in chaos, in the lonely hours, in the nights when no one comes to check if you're okay. And now you're here, not broken, not behind, but standing at the edge of something sacred. The realization that your pain was not your identity. It was your initiation, and that fire you carry, the one in your chest beneath the grief under the shame, that fire is yours. It didn't come from them. It didn't come from approval. It came from you, from every moment you held yourself together when no one else did. Because here's the truth: when you've known deep emotional darkness, you become a master of subtle light. You notice beauty others overlook. You sit with people others run from. You understand sorrow not as something to fear, but as something to tend to with reverence. And that ability, that depth, that soft-spoken power, it's a gift, but most of all, it's a responsibility, because those who learn to light their own fire have the power to light the way for others too. You become the one your younger self needed, the one your siblings looked to but couldn't name. The one who rewrites the legacy that was handed to you like a wound wrapped in tradition. And as you do this work, not perfectly but with courage, you'll begin to notice something shift. You'll stop chasing people who can't meet you. You'll stop begging love to stay. You'll stop outsourcing your worth because you'll know, not from affirmation but from experience, that your value was never up for debate, and in that knowing, you'll walk differently, not louder but deeper. And those around you, especially the ones who once feared your light, they'll feel it. They'll try to pull you back. They'll call you cold, selfish, distant. But don't be fooled. That's just what people say when they see you refusing to bleed for their comfort anymore. You are not distant. You are discerning. You are not broken. You are becoming. And if there's one thing your story has proven, it's that darkness never had the final word. You did. Because only in darkness do you learn how to light your own fire. And now that it's burning, steady, sacred, and unmistakably yours, the world will never be the same again. Number 2, it is the soul's furnace, the fire that forges. What nothing else can. Toxic families are like fire. They scorch, they blister, they leave marks that don't always fade. And yet, beneath the searing heat, beneath the betrayal, beneath the sharp edges of words never meant to be said, there is something else happening, something alchemical, something sacred, because fire doesn't just burn, it refines. And what most people see as the curse of being born into a dysfunctional family is often the furnace of the soul. It doesn't feel like a gift. Let's not pretend it does. It feels like abandonment, like confusion, like trying to love people who hurt you and trying to forgive people who never once said sorry. It feels like swallowing your voice just to survive another day. But there comes a moment, maybe quiet, maybe violent, when something inside you refuses to keep living on autopilot. You begin to question why certain wounds won't close, why your heart flinches when someone raises their voice, why you apologize for existing before anyone even accuses you. And it's in that moment that you begin to understand, not all pain is punishment. Some of it is initiation, because only the fire can strip away what is false. Only the fire can melt through the armor you were forced to wear as a child. Only the fire can reach the deepest layers of your conditioning. Not to destroy you, but to return you to who you really are. And what you are beneath the trauma and the defenses is not weak, not broken, not too much. You are tempered, like steel forged under pressure, like gold that has passed through the flame. You are no longer just surviving your past. You are being sculpted by it. It is in these crucibles that empathy is born, not the kind you read about in books, but the kind you feel in your bones, the kind that makes you sense a shift in someone's tone before they say a word, the kind that makes you pay attention to people's eyes more than their mouths. Those of us raised in emotional chaos learned early how to read the room. We became masters of attunement, of emotional radar, and while that sensitivity once felt like a burden, something that made us too emotional or too intense, it turns out to be one of the most valuable gifts you can carry. Because when you've been through the fire, you don't flinch at other people's pain. You sit with it, you understand it, you respect it. You don't look away when someone is falling apart. You hold steady, not because you have all the answers, but because you know what it's like to bleed in silence. That is emotional strength, not the kind that flexes, but the kind that endures. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that holds. And let's be honest, we didn't choose the furnace, but we were chosen by it. Not because we were weak, but because we were ready to be made real. You see, there is something about growing up in dysfunction that forces you to confront truth sooner. You don't get the luxury of illusion. You learn fast that love can be conditional, that people can lie, that those meant to protect you sometimes become the ones you fear. And while that early disillusionment hurts deeply, it also clears the fog. It opens your eyes to things others don't see until it's too late. That level of awareness, that's not trauma, that's wisdom born from survival. It's why you're able to sense the unspoken, why you value presence over performance, why you become so attuned to authenticity, because you were raised in a world full of contradiction. And maybe you still carry the scars. Maybe you still hear their voices in your head when you try to rest, when you try to dream, when you dare to believe in your own goodness. But here's the quiet truth they never taught you. Wounds don't disqualify you. They reveal your depth. They are proof that you have felt life fully and are still here becoming. You are not fragile because of what you've endured. You are real. And in a world that celebrates polished surfaces and curated perfection, your realness is revolutionary. Let's stop glorifying ease. Let's stop measuring success by how untouched someone appears. Let's honor the ones who were forged in fire and still chose compassion. Let's recognize the people who came from chaos and still chose peace. Because when you're healing from family trauma, you're not just tending to your own wounds. You're breaking ancestral patterns. You're rewriting the emotional DNA of everyone who comes after you, and there's nothing soft or weak about that. That is warrior work. That is sacred labor. That is choosing not to become what hurt you. That is transforming generational pain into personal power. So if you're still wondering why your life began the way it did, maybe the answer isn't found in blame, but in becoming. Becoming the person who turns pain into empathy, who turns wounds into wisdom, who turns silence into strength, who turns fear into fire, not a fire that destroys, but one that illuminates, starting with you, because yes, your family may have lit the match, but you are the one who learned how to carry the flame. Number 3, you weren't born to repeat the cycle, you were born to end. Some people are born to continue stories. You were born to end one, not in bitterness, not in blame, but in bold, unwavering clarity. You weren't placed into your family to mirror what came before. You were placed there to interrupt it. You are not just another link in the chain. You are the break, the last echo in a room full of inherited silence, the deep breath between what was passed down and what will never be passed on again. You may not have realized it at first. It doesn't come with instructions, this role of the cycle breaker. It starts quietly, as a question, perhaps. Why am I the only one who sees this? Why does it feel like I'm carrying pain that isn't even mine? Because you are. You are carrying the residue of patterns that were never examined, emotions that were never named, wounds that were never healed, only inherited. You were born into a legacy not of your choosing, but you have been given the sacred choice of what to do with it. And that choice is your power. You were not born to echo the yelling, to replicate the silence, to repeat the cycles of love that always came with conditions, or the kind of loyalty that demanded you abandon yourself, to keep the peace. You were born to be the one who turns inward and says, "This ends with me," not because you are perfect, but because you are awake enough to feel what others denied, awake enough to grieve what others numbed, awake enough to say the hard thing, to stand in the discomfort, to love without needing to control or to disappear. You're not just healing your own heart, you're healing through it, reaching backward and forward in time, touching the hands of ancestors who didn't have your tools and leaving a torch behind for those who come after. You are a quiet revolution, a new way of being wrapped in old wounds. But here's the truth. You are not the wound. You are the one who chose to stop bleeding on others. Every time you pause to feel instead of numb, you're ending something. Every time you choose reflection over reaction, you're ending something. Every time you set a boundary instead of silently enduring, you're ending something. Every time you walk away from a familiar kind of pain, even when it's all you've ever known, you are rewriting history. You are teaching your nervous system what safety feels like. You are teaching your voice that it's allowed to speak. You are teaching your heart that it can be held gently, not just tolerated in storms. And no, it isn't fair to be the one who sees it all. To be the one who feels more, questions more, heals more. But that weight you carry, it's proof of your capacity, not your curse. Because let's be honest, repeating the cycle would have been easier. It would have been quieter, simpler, more acceptable. But you chose something braver. You chose to feel it, to face it, to sit in the wreckage and ask, what here is still mine to carry, and what can I finally put down? And little by little you did. You unlearned love that required you to vanish. You unlearned loyalty that demanded silence. You unlearned the belief that you were responsible for other people's emotional weather. And in that unlearning, you began to remember who you actually are. You are not your mother's anger. You are not your father's absence. You are not your siblings' resentment or your family's shame. You are the one who stood in the middle of the storm, and instead of becoming the storm, you chose to become stillness. That stillness is the end of the cycle. That breath you take before responding, the end of the cycle. That therapy session, that journal page, that walk in the dark where you asked yourself what healing could actually look like. Those were the moments the cycle cracked. And you've felt it, haven't you? The grief that doesn't belong to just you. The sorrow in your chest when no one else is crying. The anger at patterns you weren't old enough to stop, but inherited anyway. It wasn't imagined, it was real. But so is your power to transform it. You are not doomed to become what you came from. You are invited to become what they could. Not to love more gently, to speak more honestly, to live more freely. Because in your family line, someone had to go first. Someone had to choose healing. Someone had to say, I will not hand this pain down any further. And the moment you said yes to that, you didn't just change your life, you changed the future. So no, you weren't born to repeat the cycle, you were born to end it. And because of that choice, you are not a continuation of a tragedy. You are the plot twist, the interruption, the one who turned pain into presence, silence into voice, and lineage into liberation. So carry that truth with you, quietly, firmly. Not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. You didn't come to blend in with dysfunction. You came to break the pattern, to build something new, to become the person you once needed, and you are doing it, one brave breath at a time. Number 4. You were given the lesson. Your soul was strong enough to learn. Not everyone can. Some lives begin in gentle places, safe homes, soft voices, unquestioned love, but maybe yours didn't. Maybe your first memories were more confusing than comforting. Maybe love looked like a transaction. Maybe safety wasn't a promise, but a performance. And maybe you grew up learning how to survive before you even knew what it meant to feel safe. That doesn't make you broken. That makes you chosen for something harder, deeper, rarer. You see, not everyone is asked to carry the weight you carry. Not everyone is asked to step into a family system filled with pain, silence, chaos, or absence, and be the one who sees clearly, the one who asks the questions no one else has ever dared to ask, the one who feels what generations have buried, the one who breaks and then rebuilds. Not everyone has the strength to do this work, to heal, to hold both the wound and the wisdom, to forgive without forgetting, to love without losing themselves again, to walk through the fire of their own history and instead of becoming bitter, become aware. But you do. You are. And that alone, that changes everything. Because the truth is most people are not strong enough to heal. They distract, they deny, they project, they find comfort in blame and validation in anger. They build fortresses around their pain so high that no truth, no love, no reflection can reach them. But you are different. You were given the heaviest curriculum because your soul came here ready to take on the assignment of transforming pain into power, of turning shame into self-understanding, of becoming the one who doesn't just carry the wound, but transcends it. And yes, it's unfair. Yes, it's exhausting. And no, the world may never applaud your silent victories, but you are not here for applause. You are here for awakening, because people like you, people who rise from the places that were supposed to break them, become the quiet teachers of the world, not in titles or stages, but in presence, in how you listen, in how you love, in how you hold space for people who have never known what safety feels like. You didn't choose the wound, but you are choosing what to do with it. And that choice is everything, because healing is not passive. It's not a spa day or a soft quote. It's fierce. It's lonely. It's messy and slow and gut-wrenching. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and whispering, "I forgive you for not knowing what to do with all that pain." It's sitting in silence when your entire nervous system wants to escape. It's choosing not to call that person who always made you feel small. It's saying, "I deserve peace," even when no one else in your life has ever said it to you. And some days you will feel like you're failing. You'll wonder why it still hurts, why it takes so long, why no one prepared you for how deep healing goes. But remember this, just the fact that you recognize the wound means you are already ahead of where it began. Pain that is seen can be changed. Patterns that are named can be rewritten. Stories that are owned can be transformed. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be honest, to show up, to keep trying, to keep coming back to yourself when everything else tries to pull you away. And the fact that you're still breathing, still questioning, still willing to face the truth of your experience, that's proof. Proof that your soul is stronger than the story you were born into. Proof that somewhere deep inside you know this isn't where it ends. This isn't who I have to be. This pain does not get to define my entire life. You are not your trauma. You are what rises from it. You are not your family's silence. You are the voice that breaks it. You are not your past. You are the path forward. And even when no one sees how hard you're trying, even when no one understands why you need space, why you need boundaries, why you're changing, you know what you're carrying. You know the work it takes to unlearn a lifetime of emotional conditioning. You know the weight of trying to become something you've never seen modeled, and still you show up. Still you reflect. Still you choose not to become the very pain that was handed to you. That's not weakness, that's not oversensitivity, that's not drama, that is sacred strength. The kind that doesn't come from perfection, but from presence, from sitting with your own suffering until it softens, from meeting your shadows and saying, I will learn you so I can free myself from you. Because that's what true healing is. It's not forgetting, it's remembering who you are underneath what hurt you. So no, not everyone can walk this road. Not everyone can look at the wreckage and see the invitation. But you can, and you are. So don't let the slowness of healing make you doubt the depth of your transformation. Don't let the world's numbness make you question your sensitivity. Don't let the old voices in your head tell you that this is who you'll always be. You are becoming something braver, softer, wiser. You are becoming a quiet, living miracle. And one day, someone will sit across from you and feel your calm, your depth, your quiet resilience. And they'll ask you, how did you learn to be like this? And you'll smile, not out of pride, but out of peace, and think to yourself, because my soul was strong enough to survive the fire and wise enough to learn from it. Number 5, you are the one awake enough to end what began long before you. The pain you carry did not begin with you. It did not rise with your first memory or form with your first heartbreak. It has roots, ancient, tangled, buried deep in the lineage of those who came before you. And whether you realize it or not, you were born into a story already in motion. That story wasn't written with malice. It was written with silence, with fear, with generations of unresolved wounds passed down like heirlooms, wrapped not in love, but in survival. The anger that lived in your father's voice, it may have been his father's voice before him. The fear in your mother's eyes, perhaps the same fear her mother buried beneath quiet obedience. The inability to say, I love you, to apologize, to be present. These were not choices made in isolation. They were patterns forged in war, in poverty, in abandonment, in unmet needs and unloved hearts. Patterns created by people who didn't know how to hold pain, so they passed it on like a torch, not to enlighten, but to endure. And now, here you are, the descendant, the inheritor, the one carrying emotional weight you never asked for, but have felt in your bones, your entire life. But here's the part they never told you. You don't have to carry it forward. You can be the one who stops, the one who sees it clearly, the one who feels it fully, the one who lays it down. Not with resentment, but with reverence. Because healing your pain doesn't mean dishonoring those who gave it to you. It means honoring them truthfully, by doing the work they didn't have the tools, the language, or the privilege to do. You are the one who was born with enough awareness to break what others were too wounded to name. You are the one who can sit in the fire and say, this ends here. And that moment, when you choose not to repeat but to repair, it changes everything. It does not make you better than them. It makes you braver. Because facing pain is the most courageous act of all. It's easy to pass it forward. It's easy to numb it, deflect it, deny it, and give it to someone else. But to hold it in your hands, to feel its sharpness, its history, its grief, and then choose to transform it instead of transmit it, that is where true legacy begins. You become the point in the lineage where the story changes, and make no mistake, it is a story, one that has been told through behaviors, reactions, silence, and shame. But now you hold the pen. Now you get to write a new chapter, One where love is not performance, but presence. One where anger is not feared, but explored. One where boundaries are not punishments, but protection. One where children are not forced to carry burdens they never created. This is not just personal healing. This is ancestral liberation. Because when you begin to heal, you begin to loosen the grip of the past on everyone connected to you. You shift the energy in your relationships. You change the tone of your voice. You alter the future without needing to rewrite the past. And your ancestors, the ones who suffered in silence, who never had the space to rest, who never felt free to cry, they feel that ripple, because you are not just their descendant, you are their dream. The one who finally said, I will feel what you could not. I will speak what you could not. I will be who you were never allowed to be. You are their answer, and the children who come after you, whether born from you or simply blessed to know you, they will feel something different. They will not have to earn love. They will not fear your silence. They will not flinch when you raise your voice, because your voice will not carry the weight of unresolved trauma. They will know a new language, one written in tenderness, in accountability, in presence, because you learned it first, because you were willing to do what generations before you could not. And yes, it's hard. There will be moments when the old patterns whisper, this is just who I am. But it's not. It's who you were taught to be. You are not cold. You were taught not to cry. You are not weak. You were taught not to need. You are not unworthy. You were taught that love must be earned. But now you know better. And because you know better, you live better. You choose softness where there was once silence. You choose truth where there was once guilt. You choose boundaries where there was once overgiving, and you do it not because it's easy, but because you're awake, because you finally realized that healing is not just about you feeling better, it's about you becoming the person your lineage has been waiting for. The one who walks a new way, so when the weight feels heavy, when the old voices come back, when the pull to repeat becomes strong, pause and remember who you are. You are the ending and the beginning. You are the one who broke the spell. You are the sacred pivot in your bloodline. You are the embodiment of what was once impossible. You are the first of your kind, the first to choose peace over pain, presence over performance, love over legacy. And for that, you are not just enough, you are extraordinary. Because the most radical thing you can do with inherited pain is not to pass it on, but to transform it into wisdom, into compassion, into a different future. You are not here to repeat, you are here to rebuild, to take what once broke you and turn it into something that holds others. That is your lineage now. And one day, when someone asks you what you've done with your life, you won't list titles or possessions. You'll simply say, I ended the cycle. I gave the next generation something better to begin with. Final reflection, you were never cursed, not by the family you were born into, not by the silence you grew up with, not by the pain you inherited. You were invited. It didn't come wrapped in kindness. It didn't arrive with gentle hands or soft words. It came through fire, through ache, through a childhood that often felt like a test you never signed up for. But hidden inside that fire was something few ever see. A doorway, a moment, an invitation not to carry the wound forward, but to become the one who ends it. And maybe no one ever told you this, but your life was never meant to be a repetition of pain. It was meant to be a pivot, a point in time where everything changes. Because only in darkness do you learn how to light your own fire. only in the silence of not being heard do you begin to hear your own voice again, not as an echo of someone else's expectations, but as a steady, sovereign truth. Your truth, your toxic family wasn't a sentence. It was a furnace, one that burned away illusion, one that melted the surface so the soul could emerge. It gave you what ease never could: depth, awareness, compassion rooted in lived experience. That fire didn't destroy you, it refined you, and in surviving it you discovered what most people never touch: that pain is not just pain, it is potential, a seed, a catalyst for awakening, not just for you, but for everyone who comes after you. You weren't born to repeat the story, you were born to rewrite it, not by pretending it didn't happen, but by facing it so honestly, so bravely, that it could no longer own you. You looked back at the patterns, the anger, the fear, the shame, and said, "This ends with me." You chose to walk the hardest path, the one that turns reaction into reflection, silence into voice, numbness into feeling. You became the first in your line to stop performing for love and start learning how to give it to yourself. Not as a reward, but as a right. And let's be honest, not everyone could do this, not everyone does, but you did, because your soul was strong enough to learn the lesson of boundaries, the lesson of tenderness, the lesson of what not to become. And maybe the world will never see the full weight of what you've carried, but you feel it in your bones. The quiet revolution of waking up to your own power. You were the one who stood between what was and what could be, and chose what could be. You were the one who turned ancestral pain into legacy, wounds into wisdom, and survival into something sacred, because here's the truth no one tells you in childhood. Your family's pain is not your destiny. It is your invitation, an invitation to reclaim emotional authority over your life, transform pain into power without carrying bitterness, learn to love yourself in the ways no one ever taught you, and become the first in your lineage to live freely, fully, and finally as your truest self. Not the version shaped by shame, not the one molded by silence, but the you who remembers. I was not born to inherit pain, I was born to heal it. You are the answer your family never knew it needed. The calm after generations of storms. The softness that rises after hardness has run its course. The light that no longer seeks permission to shine. So no, your toxic family was not a mistake. It was a threshold. And now that you've crossed it, you don't just walk for yourself. You walk for those who couldn't, and for those who will come after you. You are no longer just a survivor of your past. You are the author of your future. And that is the gift.